back to me talking about my version of the Marauders in podcast form with Emma. We're currently really trying to figure out this wordle answer, and it's not working.
It's really not.
So anyway, I'll just talk for a little bit while she figures that out. So we were gonna record this episode earlier, and then, ooh, that was a good guess. We're one letter away now. What the heck?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
We're
my
dumb.
word. We are so dumb.
Got it.
We got it. Okay, anyway. But yeah, so we were going to record this last week, and then that did not happen. And then we were going to record it earlier, but then Jasmine had her snilch thing, and that took full priority. Yeah, go watch that on YouTube. I will say, there is no outro on that video, and nobody told me until it had already been up for a full day, and it just
That's
abruptly
fun.
cuts off, and luckily most of it was done, but like we were just like in our ending banter and just nothing, and then it just cuts off, and nobody let me know until like the next day somebody commented and was like, where's the outro? And I was like, what do you mean where's the outro? And then I was like, why is the last minute and a half of this video cut off? But besides that, it's a pretty good video. But yeah, I was so confident because I didn't have any, like, audio or visual mishaps in that video,
yeah.
and then for some reason the last minute and a half just did not upload. Like, it was in the file, so it was a YouTube problem. We can blame YouTube for that. But yeah, and then today I discovered that, did you see this?
Bulgaria.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a quick shout out to the entire country of Bulgaria.
Shout out to Bulgaria.
No, but everybody who listens on YouTube in Bulgaria, I earn more than twice as much money from that country than anywhere else, which means y'all watch all the ads. And just, like, I can't imagine there's more than, like, 20 people that listen in Bulgaria. But it's above the US and Canada and, like, every other major country. So, yeah, go off to Bulgaria, and that's all I have to say. But do we want to do questions?
Yeah.
I'm sure I have those somewhere. Someone asked me, did I watch Heartstopper yet? You know I haven't. You know I never, I can't ever sit down and watch something. Favorite British word / slang. What British slang words do you know,
I feel
Emma?
like I don't know many British slang words because I'm not British.
See, I was thinking the same thing, but clearly we've got to have a favorite. I'm gonna Google British slang.
It's gonna be some weird stuff considering
Oh,
our
no.
our slang.
What is our slang? I don't even know if I could tell you my favorite slang word.
What's your favorite?
Oh, bloke. It's gotta be bloke for me.
Is that a slang word? Because that just
Apparently it
seems like a
is.
word.
Bloke.
Lad.
Bonkers. I say bonkers.
I feel like that's
all
not
the
British.
time. I feel like it definitely is, but I say it all the time. So I've got to say bonkers.
I like lad.
I don't
Throwing a wobbly. Snuffles is throwing a wobbly.
Snuffles is always throwing a wobbly. But what did I end up saying? It wasn't bloke. It was bonkers. Bonkers is
Bonkers.
my fave. And yours is lad.
Or throwing a wobbly. Whatever that means.
Somebody asked what our fandom is called. And do you remember at the beginning of starting
I feel like
this,
we
when
said
we tried to
something.
figure out something? No, we never ended up deciding, but most people suggested the Jeffreys. Or the Brads. It was either of those, and I feel like we have to make a decision.
I feel like it's funny if it's the Brads because that's like also the name of that office supplies, you know? Like the little gold things that you do when you make the paper like spin around.
No.
I forget you were homeschooled.
Oh my gosh! But no, in honor of season 3, we have to figure out if we're Jeffrey or Brad.
Those things.
Those are called Brads?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put up a thing on the video
This is
because I've
us.
never.
As I'm sure you can see so.
Okay, so have we decided on the Brads? I feel like Jeffrey is more iconic, but the Brads you like gotta know. You gotta like be halfway through.
The Brads is like just so dumb.
Okay, so yeah, you guys are the Brads. So that's pretty epic, if I do say so myself. It's pretty bonkers.
That's pretty bonkers. That's pretty wobbly.
Somebody, I can't find it, but I remember somebody asked us for our wackiest moments of each other. And I feel like we should have some because we've been friends since always. So we've got to have some pretty wacky moments, but I don't think one comes to mind where like one of us is being more wacky than the other. Your wackiest moment in my mind is probably when you and Swanky sang, "What time is it? Summertime. Time for hydration." Like all the time.
Yeah.
Throughout a summer camp that we were both at.
Every time you saw one of our leaders, you had to drink water, and so we sung that every time.
It was literally like so much. I just remember that vividly. So that's probably your wackiest moment, is just doing that repeatedly for a very long time, for like the whole week.
This is just one that I'm thinking of. I'm sure they were wackier. But
Okay.
it was Halloween, and you had like just like cut your hair really short.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked up to you and I was like, "Oh, I like your haircut." And you said, "I didn't get my haircut." And it was like a full, like, almost like a foot shorter. Like, and I was like, "Okay."
I just told you that?
Yeah. I think I just said okay and walked away.
I have absolutely no recollection of that, but that's definitely something that like 12-year-old me would have done for sure. I feel like we're vibing. I feel like they've been here for long enough, you know? Oh, but this one says, would you rather be besties with Marlene or Brad? And I think we can both confidently say Brad. Because Brad can be whoever you want Brad to be. Anyway, yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about season 3. There's going to be a lot more summer episodes than there usually are. Right now I have 5 planned out. It might end up being 6. Because a lot goes down this summer, and I didn't want it to be like, let's talk about these incredibly major events right in a row and nothing else. And that's what it was going to be if I had the usual like only 2 or 3 episodes of summer, you know? So we're gonna do some of that. But yeah, so this first one is not like incredibly interesting, but we had to set up everybody, so we're talking about everybody's first week back, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, but we have to do something on in.
Let's wobble on in.
Yeah, let's wobble on in, y'all. Let's anyway. No, but let's do this. So actually, but before we start doing that, we need, you know, because we left off, you know, they're hanging out in the lake, they're having a good time. But we did not talk about their train ride home.
Oh,
which
true.
is a whole other thing. I'm not going to say it's the most cheerful, but it is...
Yeah.
It's an okay time. So the train ride was not really a good time for Remus, if he's being completely honest, because Sirius is like leaving him for like the entire summer to go do who knows what at his family's house for the entire time. And so he's just kind of there. So they had already like said their like real like goodbyes like the night before and everything. But yeah, so now they're just like sitting in a train compartment with the others. They've like drawn the curtains and to like have some privacy before everything goes down. Now, Sirius couldn't just, this whole Sirius, I'm like gonna be like a good pureblood thing. Like, it can't just be between like him and his parents and Regulus. They have to get a couple more people like on board to see it and verify that it's happening. Mm-hmm. And so they made a plan for on the train coming back. Sirius has to have a friend breakup with the boys, and people have to see it. And so they have to have a very dramatic friend breakup, or else nobody's gonna buy it. And they, especially Regulus, is like, mostly we just have to convince my friends. So Regulus chose the compartment like 2 down from them, and they're in this compartment and they're over there. And like an hour before arrival, they've like planned for it to go down. But Regulus was like, I don't care what you do, just make it believable. And so Sirius is like our last prank. But anyway, once it all eventually goes down, Sirius is just gonna go and like be with Regulus's friends and be like, oh yeah, they're the worst, and you know, they're friends with Muggleborns. That's wow, can't believe that.
Who would be friends with a Muggleborn?
Who would do that, honestly? And then after that, they would have all of Regulus's friends to back up everything. So anyway, But Remus is not the biggest fan of this. Like he said he said it's like okay, but like he's you know, um, but it's just and even though like he knows it's all fake and like it's gonna be fine, it just is freaking him out. So anyway, the time comes, Sirius kisses Remus goodbye one last time, and then he and James are like, let's do this.
I'm like,
They're like, let's do this. And so Sirius is like, we have to make this believable. Like, I mean, actually believable. Um, and James is like, I know, we have to make it seem like I've simply been leading you astray this entire time. And Sirius is like, well, you have. What with all those pranks that only you ever came up with? And that I was just an innocent bystander. And James is like, you're so right. And so anyway, they count to 3 and James like throws a curse and it bangs the door open. And James gives the performance of a lifetime. He's like, if that's what you think, then you can get out now. And Sirius is like, I was planning on it, and like leaves. But he has like his voice when he says that is like so haughty, and it sounds like his parents are like Regulus or something. And Remus had never heard that before, and he's like, what the heck just happened? And it's so weird. It does not sound like him. And they're just yelling. They're just going at it and like making this whole thing. And so everybody's like in the compartments next to them is like coming out and being like, what the heck is going on here? Marlene and the older girls are in the compartment next door, and only Marlene and Dorcas and Bonnie like know that it's fake, and so the other girls in their dorm are like, whoa, they're like stopping being friends. And so, you know, it's a whole thing. And so at one point James is like, fine, run back to your ugly mother, why don't you? And like Sirius, like you can see in his eyes, he's like, I don't like her either. But he's like, oh, how could you? And they're just doing this whole big thing. And so he like pretends to go at James, like wander on. He's like, you shut up about my mother. And like it almost makes Remus laugh because he's like, oh, and then he's like, oh, I'm supposed to be sad, and like, oh no, my friend. But then Regulus like steps out of his car, where like he and his friends have been watching, and he's like, Sirius. He's like, just leave it. He's not even worth it. And Sirius calms down. He's like, you're right. He's nothing but scum. And even though like that was fake, James was like, okay, like no need to call me that. And it just was like so out of character and weird. So it like actually takes James aback a second. And then, you know, Sirius is like dramatically walking back to Regulus's, you know, compartment. And then James finally replies and he's like, yeah, get better hair before you call me scum next time. And Remus like, and Sirius turns around and he's like, you did not then just do real. That. And it's like real all of a sudden. But, and then Marlene like steps in between them and it's like, guys, just like stop, just leave it, just leave him alone. And so they do, and James goes back to his compartment and shuts the door, and Sirius goes to Regulus's and shuts the door. And you know, it was very dramatic, but even so, like Remus, once that happens, it's like real for Remus, and he's like, shoot, and it's like not good. But James is like, you know, and yeah, it all gets a little bit more sad, but James is like, don't worry, like, he'll be fine. He's got the mirrors, like the silver mirror or whatever. He's like, he's got one, my parents have the other. Like, he'll talk to them at the end of every month. They've already, like, set up a time. And, like, none of the security at our house applies to him or Regulus. So if they want to come back, they can. Like, and his parents won't be able to follow. And it's just still, like, a lot for Remus. And it's kind of a quiet ride back for the rest of them. But they still tried to make it a little bit fun.
They're like, let's play a game.
Let's play a game called Sirius Has to Go Back to His Terrible Parents. Anyway, so let's flash forward like a week for everybody, and we're just going to do like a little focus on how everybody's first week of summer went. So we're going to start with James. So it's been a week, and James's parents are like, not normal. They're not how they usually are. He noticed it like as soon as he gets off the train, like on the first day, but like nobody was normal at that point. Like he and Sirius couldn't even look at each other. His parents were like staring at Sirius's parents the whole time, like it was not fun. But he kind of assumed like once they got home and like, everything would kind of be okay. But it's like barely okay. It's like barely better. And they're still just stressed, and like it takes him a while, but eventually he realizes it probably is partially about Sirius, but it's probably more about like the war. And like every day when like the mail comes in, they like find a way to like go off and like whisper about it together, and like his parents don't normally do that, and he's like, well, that's stressful, and things are just weird. And then he's like, shoot, they're gonna be weird for a long time because this isn't going away, so that's not fun. But however weird his parents were kind of being, they're still Effie and Monty, and they still like are like, okay, we gotta like make things hype around here. It's the Potter household.
They're the party house.
Yeah. They don't want James to like worry about anything because he's like still in school and stuff. And so they're like still having a pretty much regular summer. Like he's staying up late, talking with his parents like over tea, like especially Effie, and he's telling them everything, and he tells them like about Lily, and he's like, yeah, I mean, after winter break we just got even more and more close. They're like, how? They're like, this is incredible, we did not see this coming. So that was kind of, exciting for them. But Effie's like, okay, we have to get her over here this summer. Like, for real. Like, Christmas was not enough. Like, she's got to stay here for, like, a whole month. And Monty's like, okay, what if we didn't freak her out, like, right away? Well, that would be pretty awesome,
She gets a call, she's like, you're moving into our house.
She's like, hi, you're going to be here the rest of the summer. I don't care about your parents. I'm your mom. Oh my gosh. But Monty's the one who kind of pulls that in. He's like, okay, let's maybe not do that. But yeah, he's like, we don't want to scare her off. And James is like, okay, I don't think anything could like scare off Lily, And then his dad says, yeah, I guess you're right. Ever since I first met her, she hasn't seemed too fazed by anything. And James is like at Christmas? Like when you first met her at Christmas? And he's like, yeah, at Christmas. Why? And he was like, no, why did you say, like, ever since the first time I met her? He's like, well, like, at Christmas. And he's like, that seemed like you were referencing a time way further away. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And, like, just really weird. We'll come back to that at a later date. But, like, he was like, oh, yeah, me and Lily going way back. And just like, what the heck? But, yeah. But anyway, Effie also asked about, like, Remus and Sirius and, like, how that whole thing is going, how Remus's transformations are, like, how he's going, like, are things getting any better? And James is like, yeah, frankly, they're getting a lot better, when Sirius is around. Of course, leaving out the whole fact that he's an animagus, like, that they all are doing that, because they still haven't told their parents that, because that's very illegal. Effie's like, okay, so I think we've gotta also invite Remus over in order to check in on him. She's like, I think Peter's gonna be fine this summer, but like Remus is probably gonna be going through it, so he could use some comfort right about now. And Monty's like, okay, it's been 3 days, not yet. I feel like he's good. She's like, well, we gotta invite them. Yeah, so that's her whole thing. She has a couple of issues when it comes to inviting people, but for the most part, James is having a solid good time. There's not much happening. He's vibing. Yeah. So let's go to Peter. Peter is glad to be back home. Because Hogwarts at the end of the year, I feel like it was just like a lot for him. It was just getting to be like a lot of pranks, and like it always happens at the end of the year where he's like, we've been doing this for way too long, man. I don't know. And so he always likes being home with his parents. His parents are also rich, and they're kind, but they're not like the Potters. Like, his parents aren't really close with each other or like with him, and like they're just not really a bestie vibes family, They just kind of like, if they had fights, their whole family dynamic was more to just like avoid each other and like take time on their own, and then once they're chill again, they're like chill. And Peter doesn't mind that. He's like James is nice, but eventually he gets really sick of like talking out every single problem he has, and like James being like, guys, like we gotta have a roomie talk. Like, that happened all the time. And Peter's like, what
if we just gave it some time?
He's like, yeah, what if we just hung out, like, for a little bit, or just, like, we're alone? Shocker.
James is like, why would you do that?
Well, James is like, we have to talk through it all the time. So anyway, so especially now that, like, Lily was there, and James was going through whatever the heck it was with their Patronuses and stuff, and then, like, Remus and Sirius had their whole relationship. He was like, I'm good with, like, I don't want feelings talks any more than I have to. It was just kind of a lot. But yeah, so, and also, like, Peter thought, he was like, I was under the impression before this year that there was kind of an unspoken rule about, like, not trying to date people that we were already friends with. And then Remus and Sirius broke that to shreds, man. And then James thinks it's okay to, like, want to go after Lily, even though they're still friends. And yeah, so it was a lot. So yeah, so he's just feeling pretty overwhelmed. But at the same time, after a couple days at home, he's like, shoot, but I'm still lonely. But then he's like, but I don't want to have a whole feelings talk, like, with everybody. I don't want to do that. And there's going to be all this emotion because Sirius, is at his house all summer. So when his mom asks who he wants to hang out with later in the summer, he doesn't say James and Remus. Oh. He says, what about those dudes from France?
Peter has sketchy summers, man.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty sure that's the last we're gonna hear from Peter this summer, because I don't like writing that stuff. But anyway, so that's Peter.
Bye, Peter.
Let's talk about Lily.
Anyways, how's she moving in?
So she is living it up. She is happy to be home. She is thrilled to be back living with her parents. There is one part about this that she is not thrilled with. Petunia has also moved back home briefly because she was, like, living with her friends for a little bit, and then, she started going out with Vernon, and it really seems like they're gonna get together. And he hasn't, like, officially proposed yet, but they're thinking about it, like, very strongly, and everybody kind of knows. But Petunia refuses to live with a man that she is not married to, which is not a rule her parents had. I think her parents are super hippy-dippy and were like, do whatever. But, like, the friends that she had, like, that's not a thing. She was like, I have to be married to somebody before I live, like, alone with him. And so she moved back into her parents' house for, like, a little bit so she wouldn't sign a whole other lease and, like, stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah. So she's back at her parents' house. And Lily's like, I thought we were done with this whole living together situation. So she's not thrilled, but, Anyway, so since getting home, Lily has just been, like, telling stories to her parents and, like, helping with, like, the bakery and, like, everything like that. And it's been so much fun, and she's just, like, blah, 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 because they had heard, like, of course, that, like, now she's friends with, like, the guys that she used to hate and everything, and, like, she's talked about it, but there's only so much that you can, like, explain in letters. Letter. Yeah, and also, like, I think she was home for part of the last Christmas break, but, like, again, like, so this is her real time to explain, like, everything that's been going on, and so, they're explaining it, and they're like, oh my gosh, and, like, hearing all these different things, she's like, and then you're never gonna believe, like, it's this whole story. She has her own podcast at this point, just from the last year, but her parents are just fascinated by these stories, because even though she's, like, leaving out the fact that, like, they're definitely breaking rules.
Almost died.
Well, and stuff like that. But she's like, oh my gosh, like, we made this ice rink, and they're like, that's allowed? And she was like, yeah. We didn't get in trouble at all.
It's magic.
I don't know
it's
what
a magic school. You can do magic there.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that. But,
she was like, yeah, one of the professors helped us out with it. That's true. The professor, like, getting, like, fired.
Yeah, literally. But anyway, they're happy with her grades. They're happy with everything about her this year. They're happy that she made new friends, everything. But her parents are especially happy about James. They loved hearing her talk about James. They had at first, like, in the previous year, I think we mentioned it in the summer episodes, like, Remus's parents thought that he was dating Lily, and I think that also happened vice versa, where they were like, they're always calling, this is a thing. But she told them about the whole Remus and Sirius thing, and so they were like, oh, shoot, well, you can't have Remus anymore. But they're like, James, let's hear about him. James is seeming like a solid replacement for Remus, now that he's not, like, completely...
Remus replacement.
Yes, But yeah, and she's talking about, she's like, yeah, you know, we ended up, but she's made it very clear to them that they're not like, they're just friends, but her parents are kind of not buying it. But you know, she's talking about it. She's like, yeah, he helped me out with like relationship stuff with like Bradley. You know, and then he helped me with Snape and even like stopped texting him and stuff. And they're like, okay, so like he's a solid dude. But yeah, so then one night she's telling them another story involving James, and her mom suggested that they invite James over sometime soon. And then Petunia lost her mind. Because she's like, literally, stop it. All I hear is James this, James that. I don't even care about James. Who even is James? And now you want to invite him over? And this is the real kicker. She's like, you've never asked me to invite Vernon over. Ever. And we're literally almost engaged. Like, he's gonna be your son-in-law, and you didn't invite him over, and you're gonna invite this James person over? Like, that's not okay. And so she's really not having a good time going off. And she storms off, and so that night is pretty tense, I would say. A
little awkward.
Yeah, so, Petunia's just, like, ignoring her parents' apologies, and she's, like, crying to Vernon on the phone, and it's, like, it's not a good time. But yeah, and so usually when stuff like this would happen, Lily would just kind of like go off and just like ignore it and like whatever, like a Peter strategy, you know. But
she's
this
been
time,
hanging out with James too much, and she's gonna go talk it out.
Well, yes, it is James partially, but I think she wants to go and talk with her about it, more actually because of Sirius, because the day, like when they're getting on the train, like before they're on the train, he had pulled her aside that day and like told her and was like really kind of went into the details with her because she wasn't there when he explained it to the others. But yeah, so he explained why he did it and was asking her if she was like really actually like okay with it, and she was like, why would I'm like not the person I feel like this should be happening with. And he was like, well, no, you are, because I need you to make sure that like you know that I don't actually believe in any of this stuff, and it's not like I'm just doing this to, you know, maybe have some sort of relationship with Reg one day. I'm not like, and so he's like, I'm just going to be saying things that I don't agree with at all just to make my parents happy. Things that are horrible against you. And I need you to know that like, I'm not going to say anything unless you're like okay with it. And she was like, and he was like, they're going to want me to say bad things about you, Lily. And like, if you don't want me to, like, I won't, like, I'll figure out some other way to like get them on my side. And she was like, serious, like, no, this is about your brother. I know you don't mean it. And he was like, okay, but still. And she was like, no, like, I don't care. Do whatever you need to do to be safe. Like, tell them I'm a horrible magic stealer and stole all my magic from Snape's parents. And he's like, what? He's never heard this before. And she was like, and she's like, I don't care. Call me a mudblood. Like, really, I don't care. He's like, I'm not going to call you that. And she was like, serious, like, fine. But, like, promise me that, like, if it comes down to, like, calling me a stupid name or, like, staying safe, you're going to stay safe. And so, you know, that was kind of how that went. But because she had that talk with him and, like, saw how, you know, how Sirius was trying to make an effort with a sibling, that, and they had kind of bonded in the beginning of their friendship over both, like, not having good times with their siblings. And so now she's like, how could I, like, be to Sirius, like, you know, do whatever it takes to have this relationship with your sibling? And then be like, bye, Petunia. You're like, yeah, no, that's not gonna work out. And so she was like, now I have to do this. So anyway, when the whole thing with Petunia goes down, she, like, comes up Petunia's room. She, like, knocks, and Petunia's like, what? And she's like, it's me. Can I come in? And she's like, fine. And so she walks in, and Petunia, like, has been crying, and she looks miserable. She's not vibing at all. And she's just sitting there. And so Lily's like, okay. And she's like, okay, I'm sorry for kind of stealing the spotlight from you and Vernon. I didn't mean to. She's like, I didn't mean to make you feel bad by, like, talking so much and telling all these stories. She's like, and it's totally not fair that mom and dad invited James and not Vernon. Like, I'm not even dating James. You know, it's like, that was ridiculous. And just then she's, like, sitting there, and it's like, it was one of those things when, like, she would pause something and Petunia would look at her, and then she'd be like, and I'll apologize a little more, you know? But anyway, so then she's like, it was totally not fair for, you know, our parents to invite James and not Vernon. She stops, and she's like, and I would love to see Vernon again sometime. He was He was so nice.
So fun.
Such a
fun
good
guy.
time. And then that like is exactly what Petunia means, and she's like, really? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to see him. He was so nice. And
So
like
nice.
Petunia is like breaking down at this point, and she's like sobbing and hugging Lily. She's like, "Thank you so much." And Lily's like, "Okay, fine," but you know, she's like, "Okay, maybe I can work out something with Petunia after all." But yeah, kind of a nice moment. We're getting some redemption there.
There we go.
So now we have Remus. We're seeing how his first week is going. Not fun.
Really?
I'm so sorry. I know. I said on my Instagram story when I was like writing this, I was like, "Hey, so how much are you guys gonna hate me if the season opener is like not like happy?" People seem to be okay with it, but I'm kind of sorry about this. I promise we'll get happy episodes in this season, and in the summer episodes we'll get some, but not yet. But Remus has like not really enjoyed his summer. I mean, he's been trying to like really hard. He's back with Emmeline. He's so happy to be back with her, and she's like 13 now, and he's like, that's too old. But you know, it's hard to be chill because his parents are also getting pretty stressed about the war. And like after their first night there, like he's like just gotten off the train and he's like still upset by the whole Sirius thing. After they like send Emmeline to bed and then they sit him down at like their kitchen table and his dad tells him everything that he's like been hearing at the ministry, and he's like not even like higher up in the ministry. They've just like been sending out more warnings and safety things, and like it's not like they're as prepared as they were like I feel like in Harry Potter we see like they were prepared based off of things that have been happening, but they're just like, stay more safe, maybe. Don't like
stay safe.
Don't like
Question
walk
mark?
outside in the woods alone, you know? Like
Gotcha.
you know, and stuff like that, and just to be on constant lookout for like suspicious activity. And so he like sits down and is telling Remus that, and Remus is like, okay. But then he's like, okay, and I hate to say it, but rumor has it that the reason we're supposed to be on the lookout is because they're trying to recruit. And Remus is like, okay, like I'm not gonna.
They're
be a
recruiting
werewolf.
you.
Well, no, and then he's like, and sounds like they're recruiting werewolves. And Remus is like, do you think I'm gonna go join them? Like, what the heck? And his mom is like,
all right,
no.
bye guys.
She's like, no, Remus, we would never think that. We're worried that they're gonna target you. They're gonna try and come after you. And who knows, like, what's gonna happen if you, like, say no to them, you know? Like, we're just trying to keep you safe. And Remus is like, okay, like, maybe they're onto something. But they tell Remus that they're really worried about his safety while at home, and that he's not allowed to go, as I have previously said, wandering around in the woods, like, around their house. They have, like, this whole, like, wooded area and stuff, so they're like, maybe don't go there. And he's like, yeah, fine, that makes sense. And then they're like, maybe you shouldn't even, like, really leave the house without somebody watching. And he was like, okay, seems a little bit more sketchy. They're like, yeah, certainly don't go, like, into, like they live in, like, a very rural area, but they have a little small, like, town thing. And they're like, you shouldn't go there without, you know, Dad. And he's like, okay, maybe that's a little bit more stressful. And they're like, and also you should not visit anybody else's house this summer. And he's like, hold up. This is not, he was like, hold on, no. He's like, listen, he's like, I get you're trying to be safe. But James's parents are like way, like they're fine. Like, I'm gonna be fine if I go to James's, you know? They're like, they have this super protected mansion house. They're more stressed about the war than you guys are, probably, if we're being honest. And he's like, and also, not trying to be like, Mom, you're a muggle, but like, both of them are wizards, and Dad, you're just one, you know? He was like, I feel like, if anything, I'm more safe at the Potters.
Yeah.
And his parents are, and Lyle is like, okay, yeah, his parents don't know what you are. And he's like, so about that.
Doesn't he literally, like, stay at their house for, like, a good couple months during the summer?
Well, no, he has always gone over to their house but never during a transformation.
Okay.
Because his parents don't think that the Potters know anything about him being a werewolf, because he's been under strict instruction to not tell anybody, you know? And so his parents are like, but they don't know what you are, and you don't know how people are gonna react to that and stuff. And so he just kind of has to bite his tongue, because he's like, yeah, no, my parents will lose their actual minds if they knew that the Potters knew that I'm a werewolf. And so he's like, well, shoot, not gonna make my summer very fun. But yeah, and so then it like all, starts to sink in, and he's like, I'm gonna have as trapped of a summer as Sirius is. Like, not as bad, because like my parents are chill, but like
still trapped.
not gonna be going anywhere, not gonna be able to hang out, like do anything, and like that's not fun. But yeah, and so but then he's just like, can James come over here though? That's also something that has never happened before. And his dad just like stiffens it, even just hearing it. Because their house is very small, and like they're not rich, and just like many random objects have been like ripped or destroyed by his younger years of being a wolf. It's not a mansion like the Potters have, for sure. And so they, just because of that, his parents have always been wary of the fact that he was friends with James, and have never been like just go over to their house, maybe don't come over here. Just then his dad is just like, no. And Remus is like, what? And he's like, it's not safe. And he's like, come on, James can come over here. That's not gonna do anything. But Lyle's like, okay, they don't know what you are though. And he's like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so
he literally lives with James.
And that's the next thing he said. I sleep 2 feet away from him every night that I'm at school. He's fine. You just are, you don't want him seeing this house, It's like it's the whole thing, because you don't think you have enough money or whatever. And like that touches a nerve. It's a whole thing. First night of the summer vibe.
What is James gonna be doing?
James is like, okay. No, we'll find out what James is going to be doing later. So he's like, so you just don't want him seeing this poor house because, everything. And it's like, whoa, okay. But so his dad, he definitely touched a nerve with his dad, but his mom is like actually kind of on his side. She's like, okay, like she's talking to her husband, and she's like, okay, come on, like it's not going to be that bad. He's right. He spends so much time around James. I think it's probably fine, Don't think he's going to realize it. She's like, we might have to like maybe get rid of the kitchen table that has these giant scratches on it. But besides that,
it's part of the
I think we're good. But, Lyle doesn't say anything. And he's like, okay, we'll think about it.
It's going to be, like, James and, like, possibly Lily and just, like, Marlene. And, like, he sends a letter to Kingsley, and Kingsley's just like, no.
He's like, I don't want to hang out with you. XOXO Kingsley. So after that whole thing, Remus goes upstairs, and I think I said this like the time before, but they have like a tiny upstairs room that's split into 2 rooms, and that's just where he and Emmeline are. And so he goes up there, and she's just on the stairs. She's like, just awake, and he's like, oh my gosh. And so she heard everything, and she wasn't supposed to have heard any of it. And so, but yeah, so he goes upstairs. He's like, literally, what are you doing here? Because he's already fed up. And she's like, yeah, that's way too harsh. That's, like, ridiculous. And he's like, thanks. Like, that's gonna help any. But she's like, but to be fair, I think they are trying to just keep you safe. But, yeah, and so, but she's like, they know you're a werewolf, right? And he's like, yeah, they do. And she's like, okay, I thought so. And so she's like, yeah, that's really stupid then. But, yeah, so then, they end up staying up, and she's like, are you still best friends with Sirius, though? Because if they're going to be monitoring his friendships this much, it was already a secret that he was friends with Sirius. And so he's like, yeah, I am still friends with Sirius. And she's like, well, shoot, that's going to mean you can't see him at all. Like, she's like, man, that's really tough. And he's like, thanks. But no, and he's like really, really sad. And he's like, well, actually, I wasn't going to be able to see him anyway, so, like, don't even worry about it. And she's like, what the heck? And he just ends up telling her everything, and how stressed he was about it. And I feel like that night, like, something kind of shifted between him and Emmeline, like, for the better. Like, she's not really a kid anymore, and he just, like, told her all this stuff that he had been keeping from her before. Like, I guess not really keeping, but, you know, because she ended up finding out about Sirius of her own accord, but that was kind of more her finding out than him telling it. But anyway, so yeah, so after that, his week was pretty uneventful because his parents had still not made a decision about whether or not he's allowed to have James over. And so they had just been hanging out, and they're, like, playing cards, and she plays the piano really well, and so listening to that, and just in general, just being an absolutely chaotic duo, you know? But now, though, when he remembered Sirius and, like, started to stress about how he's doing, it was okay, because, like, Emmeline, like, knew what was up, and she'd be like, dang, man, that sucks. You know, she's not like she can help, but just having somebody else that, like, was there and that knew, you know, and that he wasn't, like, hiding stuff from her anymore. He wasn't telling her everything. He wasn't like, guess what, we're dating. But, you know, he wasn't hiding stuff anymore, so, yeah. So that's kind of Remus. Then we get to Sirius.
Oh boy. So
yeah, so about that. Okay. And I'm so sorry that he's gonna be how we end the episode, but that's just how it worked out. So honestly, up until now being a week after, it had been shockingly easy for this whole thing to go off, because Regulus had, like, helped make sure he had, like, as soon as they had that first talk that was, like, I don't know, a couple weeks before, and they had kind of decided, so he had immediately written to his parents and was like, you know, didn't really want to get your hopes up too much, but Sirius has been really great this whole school year, like, the whole time, and just, like, you know, doing this, and I think he's really taken a turn for the better type of thing. So his parents were already kind of forewarned that, like, you know, maybe things would be better, and so then it was just really kind of easy to keep up, like, way easier than he was expecting. He just had to be, like, you know, on their first day, he just had to, first of all, actually talk to his parents at dinner, which was just
whoa,
something he had never done before, and just, like, pretend to listen to their stories, and, like, you know, when they asked, being like, oh, yeah, I cut off everything with that disgusting Potter boy, you know, and everything, and was like, you know, I can't believe that they would have done that to me. I've seen, you know, the error of my ways and everything, and like, they just were, like, eating it all up, and he's like, awesome, you know, and honestly, like, that first week, it was kind of fun at times, just, like, being like, can't believe these horrible things James has done to me, like, being a good friend, you know, horrible, but yeah, and he's like, and, you know, heaven forbid, respecting people, but yeah, his parents were like, absolutely, he was a horrible person, but he's having fun with it, and, like, it's, like, to the point where, like, he'll look at Regulus sometimes, and Regulus is, like, trying not to crack up at the dinner table, like, it's just, James. Like, serious. He's like, I can't believe James, and he's like, oh, and Peter, and all this stuff. However, he's keeping up, like, hey, I've never been real good friends with Remus or Lily, though. So at least he was always friends with, like, the more pure blood people, but he's like, oh no, never spoke to the others, like, not even acknowledging it. Yeah. So, and so, you know, it's going okay. But yeah, and, like one time he's like, you know, he's just explaining their horrible pranks that they had done, and he's like, and I can't believe what they did to poor Regulus's Quidditch uniform. That was so mean.
I love my brother.
And he's like, well, no, he made it say something else. Oh. But, like, when he's retelling the story or whatever, but he's like, and they were so mean to Regulus. It's the whole thing. But yeah, so the first few days had been easy, but then eventually, like, as, you know, he figured he would, like, his mom especially started, like, kind of testing things more and more, because she's like, this is a little bit too good to be true. I'm not really trusting this. So, like, one time, completely unannounced, she just went through his room and, like, got anything that wasn't forcibly glued to the walls, anything that even kind of related to his friends, and, like, went through all of his drawers and everything, and, like, photos that he hadn't hidden well enough, and he was like, yo, what you doing, when he noticed, and she was like, well, you're not friends with them, so I figured, you know, I'd burn them all. And he's like, well,
Cool.
shoot. And he's like, yeah, they're horrible, horrible people. So that was not fun. You know,
It's
and
like
he just
fun
had to.
afternoon activity.
Yeah, he's like, let's go. But yeah, no. So he hid like the rest of anything that she didn't find. He hid like super well after that. So you know, it's hard but not impossible. The only thing he was really stressed about with that was like her finding the silver mirror, but like he hid that beyond hiding. Like it is gone type of thing. Honestly, yeah, we're gonna say this after that whole thing. He even gave that to Regulus, and was like,
like,
"This
"Here
is
you
a
go."
you thing," because Regulus knows what it is, and he knew that the Potters were gonna be checking in with him anyway. And so you know that's Regulus's responsibility because he's like, "Okay, I got nothing else." But today, a week after leaving, is when I don't like this. Is when she really did her first like real kind of test for him. He, you know, had been ready for another perfectly normal day of talking and bashing his friends, you know, having a good time. But when he comes downstairs, Regulus looks at him in a certain way, and he's like, "Oh shoot, like something's up." She told him something. And like it should. Thinking back, Sirius is like, this should not have even been a big deal. Like, it's a temporary thing. It's not like she asked him to, you know, be a Death Eater or something. You know, it wasn't anything crazy. But she's like, we're having a party next week. And so it had to be done. And it was the first thing that he ever attempted to fight her on, and politely still, but he was like, it's been fine up until now. I've been able to keep it neat, but she insisted that since they had this party coming up, his shoulder-length hair that he had since he was 11 years old had to be cut. So he has grown out this hair since he was 11, since he first left that house. He was like, I'm a punk rock person and I got long hair.
11-year-olds.
But yeah, so and he had like been painstakingly for like this past week, like in like a slick tied back situation every day in hopes that it wouldn't happen. But you know, she said it had to, and he had to pretend that he was vibing with her, so he let it happen. But he said, but like while she's like doing it, he's like, this is so stupid. Like, why do I even care? Like, it's hair. Like, it'll grow back. Like, why am I so attached to this whole thing? But when he walks upstairs and like catches sight of himself in the mirror, he like can't deal with it. He can't deal with it because he looks just like his dad and just like Regulus. And like, even though he knows it's like a ruse and like everything, he still hates it. It was like everything that he had tried not to become. And that's when it all just finally hit him, like what he was doing, and that he was there, and that he wasn't going to go to the Potters that year, and that he wasn't going to be able to see Remus at all for the rest of the summer. And so with the flick of the wand, he closed his door and puts the silencing cell in the room. And for the first time since he's told Regulus that he was going to do it, he finally let himself cry. And that's the end, and I'm so sorry, but I promise the next episode is going to be a lot of fun, because I can't deal with it.
Next episode is 3 bullet points.
Yes, because I know exactly what's happening, and it's going to be really fast to write.
Okay.
But, so I am sorry. But also, is it a regularly timed episode? Yes, it is. This is like the first one that's not like over an hour. It's not like an hour and 30 minutes of footage for me to do. Oh my gosh. I know, like, I would like complain about it, and then like people would comment and be like, we love the longer episodes, and I'm like, I know you like them. I don't, because I'm the one who has to, like, it takes about if I have an hour and 20-minute episode to edit, it takes like a solid 3 hours. And I'm like, what if I don't want to do that? You know, it takes about twice as long as it actually is for me to edit it. And so it was just not a fun time. But yeah, but hopefully they will come more quickly, especially these next couple ones. So we're just gonna be cranking them out, having a good time. I'll get Emma here as much as possible, but you're leaving on vacation at some point, aren't you?
I'm going to the beach.
When?
Forever.
Babe. What the heck?
We're going like this weekend.
Okay.
You're not allowed to do
vibe.
like have James and Lily get together without me then.
I'm not gonna do that.
That's my rule.
Okay, but I will say a lot of important stuff happens this summer, and I feel like we're just gonna have to have the cost of maybe you not being here because we're gonna have to get through it. Like, we just gotta... We're on a deadline. Like, mid-August is way too close, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of emotions tied up in that. But I'm just gonna have to be on speed mode.
We're speedrunning this summer.
We are speedrunning this summer. Wasn't that the name of one of the episodes?
Probably. I think
speedrunning summer or speedrunning Christmas. I also need to make thumbnails for all of these. Okay, speedrunning December. That was what it was.
We love a good speedrun.
We do love a good speedrun. Speaking of speedruns, I wanted to talk to you about this, like, not while it's recording, but I feel like it might kind of be funny. Do you think we should start a gaming channel?
Yes. Absolutely.
Maybe not even start a gaming channel, just start posting gaming videos.
On here, you gotta title them and, like, edit them so they look like actual videos.
Like podcast videos.
We have them as episode numbers, too.
Oh my gosh, no.
That would be funny.
No, but I don't even know what we would do. I just feel like we would have a good time doing it.
You upload it to, like, Spotify, too, and it's just us playing, like, Minecraft. And they're like, what is going on?
No, I feel like we should... I know everybody's, like, because the Dream SMP got so big or whatever, but, like... A Minecraft YouTube channel?
That would be fun.
Would you guys watch that? Be sure to comment and let us know. Because, like, I feel like that would be something we can do at school.
That
true. Would be because we could just, like, screen record our stuff and, like, it would be fine. We could be faceless YouTubers, like, on a different channel.
Except it's linked to this one. We're faceless though,
yes,
guys.
We're faceless. You don't know what we look like. Oh my gosh. But no, it could be a fun time. I've been thinking about this for way too long, but I'm like, okay, I will say, before people answer and say, like, do we want this?
It would be so dumb.
I have to preface how bad I am at video games of any sort. I am obsessed with watching Minecraft. I'm obsessed with playing Minecraft. I am so bad at Minecraft. So bad. It's just kind of... So that would be something that we have to deal with. Is just me being unreasonably bad at things. But having a good time, regardless. Yeah. But yeah. I just thought that would be kind of funny. So yeah, let us know if you want a gaming channel.
That would be so fun.
I know. And yeah, and it's gonna be a good time. I promise the next episode will be a solid good time. And it will be coming quickly. And yeah, have an epic day.
I think we just do no outro from now on.
Just have an epic day.
Goodbye.
And that's it. No, I still gotta credit people who do my lovely art, like, you know, why can't I say it? Metamorphmatis. I love that username. Whenever I go to say it, I can't. So, but anyway, we love Metamorphmatis, which I said perfectly now. And we also love his TikToks. Absolutely incredible. We also love Benji Wilson for doing my solid vibing intro and outro music, which I feel like nobody appreciates except me, but I really like it. And yeah, here's to season 3. That's pretty much it. Bye! I've been thinking about that for so long, Emma. It's so pointless, but it would be so funny. Also, I can't tell you how many comments I've gotten in the past couple videos that have been like, Emma's the funniest person I've ever seen. And I'm like, absolutely. And like, you've got...
I live for those comments.
That's so nice.